Doctor Who Flux is the most disappointing thing since my son, but not my first son, nor my second son, Ryan Johnson, but my third son, Chris Chibnall, and his last series of Doctor Who. Stick around to listen to my Analsys, or listen to these two geeks. Get the damn dog off the couch.
Hello and welcome to the Geeks Review. I'm Royce.
I'm Matt.
Doctor Who Flux is the 6-episode 13th series of the new revival. Stars Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor, and it's written by Chris Chibnall of Broadchurch. We discussed episode 1 a few weeks ago, and now the entire series is available to watch on ABC iView. Crystal Skull aliens, giant space farts, dog people, Cybermen, angels. What the hell's the Flux? What did you think of this, Matt?
Well, I have an interesting relationship with it because I was really excited for the first episode, and then I absolutely loved episode 2 with the Sontarans. It made the Sontarans an actual threat again. And then, it was kind of rode the wave until episode 4 with the Weeping Angels, and I loved the one with the Weeping Angels. Then last week, it was kind of lots of nothing happening, and I was like, okay, but they'll make it good in the last one. But last night, I watched the finale of the series, and it was bum juice, Royce. I was angry. I'm sad. I'm so sad for Jodie Whittaker. I think we discussed this last year when we talked about her run in general.
To put it down there, there's a lot of hate, a lot of vitriol online. People are like, oh, you can't have a female doctor, you're causing crimes with a female doctor. It's that rubbish that's going around online now. But yeah, a lot of hate, and I don't have hate. We don't have hate for Jodie Whittaker. I love Jodie Whittaker as an actress, and I was really excited, and I'm still kind of excited and optimistic for her, but
she's great. She had some really great moments in this series.
Yeah, she felt the most doctorish
she shines the most. Pretty much every doctor ever has settled into the role. And I think she's really settling into the role now.
It's just a shame there's only 3 episodes left.
Yeah. She is definitely best. She's at her best when she's got a villain to act against. So like Swarm or Time, whatever that was. We'll get to that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But Jodie Whittaker really shines in interrogation scenes and confrontations and stuff. That's where her Doctor is. Those are her best bits.
I really enjoyed the scene with Craig Parkinson's Serpent character.
The Grand Serpent.
Yeah, Doc Cotton from Line of Duty. And she just figures things out, she interrogates him, like she turns it back on him for a bit. And same with the Sontaran back in the Sontaran episode. She sort of lies to him and says, the Doctor's here, I'm here on his behalf, and tricks the Sontaran. But yeah, it's sort of hard not to see it sometimes as just an impression of 10, in some cases.
Yes, I said this to people I watched the episode with last night, that in the interrogation scene, which I loved, I absolutely loved it last night, but the way she was using her eyes and her teeth to act, and the like it felt super David Tennant, which I still really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
and she has really strong acting moments this episode.
Last year we did a big special, you and I, and Holly and Robbie.
Yeah.
And you sort of talked about how you played this game where you looked at the previous Doctors and tried to say, like, okay, well, how does this one relate to this one? Are they the same person, And I think this series is like finally the time where you can sort of go, this is the same character as 4, as 10, as 12, as 8. Like, I could see scenes with her in them, and she was saying and doing things I could imagine the other Doctors saying and doing.
Yeah.
Which was a relief.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's... We're saying the positives here before the negatives.
Oh, so many negatives. So many negatives. We're talking about the whole season today, aren't we?
Yeah. And I guess spoilers, because I guess if anyone who wants to see it has already seen it, and even if we say a spoiler, it's so incomprehensible that it's not going to make any sense anyway.
My favourite 2 episodes of this season were War of the Sontarans, episode 2, and Village of the Angels, episode 3. So good. I absolutely love the new Sontarans. The kind of resolution of the Sontaran War of the Sontaran episode was kind of a bit a bit strange because the Sontarans have always they're a monster from Classic Who, for people who don't know, and always their weakness has been this probic vent at the back of their neck, which is where they get fed from through a tube in the back of their neck, and if you bang the back of their neck, they get knocked down. And they expanded on it in this story with the Sontarans and said every 27 hours or every 26 hours for 7 minutes, Sontarans rest and feed through the tube, and that's when they sleep and eat and everything. And so the solution was to get rid of all the food in the 7 minutes before they get fed, and it's like, oh no, we have to leave now.
Yeah.
But the thing
and they
is,
all do it at the same time as well.
Yeah.
The entire army just incapacitates itself for 7 minutes.
And also, you remember they worked it out because Mary Seacole, a historical figure who was really great in the story. I can't remember the actress' name, but she was keeping a Sontaran as a patient, and she noticed that he slept for 7 minutes every 26 hours or whatever it was. But he wasn't on the ship, so he wasn't actually getting fed.
Yeah, true. He's slowly starving. That's true. That's a fair point.
Yeah. So it's a bit dodgy.
Yeah, and a lot of people also pointed out, with that's a complicated story because it's split between the past and the present, the Crimean War and modern day Liverpool, where the Sontarans have invaded both time streams, and Dan, played by John Bishop, is in the present, and he and his dog Carvanista go and wreck a shipyard.
Not his dog. A companion species from another planet who look like dogs.
Yeah, they do that, and then people were saying it's a bit hypocritical where they go and do that, and then the Doctor's criticising this general back in the Crimean War for blowing up all the Sontarans when Carvanista and Dan just went and did that. But there's a difference between the attacking force in Liverpool present and the retreating force in Crimea past,
Yeah. And this series, the Doctor has been quite inconsistent about genocide. She was very keen and ready to just let the Sontarans die.
Yeah.
At the hands of the Flux last night. But all that beautiful work that they did with making the Sontarans an actual threat again was just undone last night when Sontaran was bribed with chocolate. That was so stupid.
Yeah, a friend was sharing gifs of Augustus Gloop. And I was saying, Sontaran's fallen in the river.
It was so sad. That was the moment when I clocked out of the episode.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is going to happen. He's like, wouldn't that be funny if that happened? Oh, it's happening. Right.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
We're supposed to joke about it,
It would have been funny if, for some reason, the Sontarans were they needed to get, chocolate or something because the Doctor had, destroyed all of their stuff in the Crimean War. So they needed to get sugar and stuff from corner shops. That would have been and that would have been funny in itself.
Yeah.
I think just seeing the Sontarans in a shop and
yeah, and this one he sends away his troops and then he just gorges himself on chocolate and stuff.
Yeah,
and it was something that was also introduced 30 seconds before it happened. So it's literally set up punchline and it's boom. And there's a lot of that. I mean, there's a lot of structural issues with this entire series. But other ones Yaz has got this thing written on her hand,
what would the Doctor do?
Yeah, this little slogan to sort of motivate herself, and it's freshly written on her palm. It's not like she's just gone through hell and back and had it there for hours. And then 10 minutes later, the villain comes along and is like, "Oh, I know you've got this written on your palm." It's not like it's a thing that dates back. If it was something that dated back, dozens of episodes, that would have been oh.
But no, it was set up 10 minutes before.
Yeah.
Can we talk about Swarm and Azure?
Yeah, Swarm and Azure are the Crystal Skull aliens, villains of this series. Ravagers, they're called.
Except, they were never called that until, the last half of this episode.
Yeah.
We never actually found out what they were.
I'm not even totally sure what they were, because we first meet Swarm, and he's this blue Crystal Skull guy, and he's, chained to a pole on a planet, and he's prisoned, and he absorbs the power of this one prison guard, and he regenerates, he renews. And we're thinking, oh wow, okay, There's this villain who's got crystal skull, like he's got a crystal skull, he's got crystals all over him, and
he can absorb life force and like disintegrate someone.
he can regenerate, you know. He look at the Doctor's TARDIS, there's crystals everywhere, and the crystals are bleeding, so you think this is like
That's something to do with it.
nothing to do with it at all.
No.
And
We never found out who Swarm and Azure were.
yeah, I mean,
And I was so excited for them because Doctor Who hasn't had an original villain since the 80s.
properly, no. I mean, Zimshar and all that's not the Bating. But a proper villain, like, not just a monster, like a Weeping Angel.
Yeah, like an actual villain, a one person or two, a figurehead with a plan. And it was like in episode 2, at the end of the Sontaran episode, where Swarm and Azure have, they're taken over this temple of Atropos and put Yaz and Vinda in this like Maury Michelle.
Yeah.
So many concepts thrown at us this month that just have not been explained or explored in any way.
Yeah, like there's this temple of time, like all of time and like in existence flows through this temple and these beings.
Whatever that means.
A lot of abstract concepts. The entire series feels like, a treatment of a script rather than an actual script.
Yes, and Swarm and Azure looked fantastic. Performances amazing.
The swagger.
I love the performance.
Yeah. And it was a different actor playing the original Swarm as well. Yeah. I really liked the flashback. And he's got cool lines. He carries himself cool. Like, there's an odd contradiction to your words. Stop killing people or we'll kill you.
Yeah.
That sticks in my head. Just,
And I love the performances and this weird power they have. They just kill people without a thought. Like, that's great. That's great villain stuff. But then after episode 2, they just kind of faded into the background. It's like, what exactly was their plan? They kept people in these passenger form things, which is an interesting idea.
Yeah.
This kind of humanoid henchman that is also like a prison that can hold 5 million people inside it.
That's the other thing as well, because that prisoner form is like a TARDIS. It's bigger on the inside.
So much like, it's like, oh, this has got to be related to the Time Lords.
Yeah, and it's skull themed, so I thought it was a more direct, like, maybe I sort of thought this is another one of their race, like this is just an armoured big dude, like same fellow from their race. And yeah, when we sort of get the Time Lord connection, it's like, oh wow, okay, maybe this is like an offshoot. There's talks of, it's so frustrating, hey?
It's really sad. I mean, half the fun of being a Doctor Who fan is theorizing and picking up the pieces and like, oh, what's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? And when it's just nothing, it's disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, there's this whole plot line with this organisation called the Division.
Yeah,
and
is it Division or the Division?
One of the two. And the Division is, it seems, an offshoot of Time Lord Society that the Doctor worked for many, many years ago when she was...
Before the show started.
Yeah. There's this whole... It's so frustrating because we were introduced to this fugitive Doctor played by Jo Martin. She was a human on Earth called Ruth, and it turns out she was the Doctor, the first, POC Doctor, the second female Doctor, and this was someone from outside our knowledge and outside the Doctor's knowledge who worked for this shadowy organisation called the Division, who fought Swarm and Azure, who was obviously, not happy with what the Division did, so she had her mind wiped and became the Doctor we know today. And Jodie Whittaker's Doctor has just sort of wrestled with this thing and...
with the audience, trying to piece together who she was and stuff. Think what you do... you can have your opinion about the Timeless Children revelation. I'm still not super keen on it.
No.
But it is canon now, so make something of it. If you're going to drop this big bombshell, explore the explosion.
Yeah, there's so much just potential as well, and it's like I said, it's like a half-finished idea, or it's like he's going it's... Okay, so... People have been trying to figure out how does Ruth fit into this.
Yes.
And you've gone and got this organisation called the Division. So there was a popular fan theory going around that division was like a literal thing, as in something has been divided, And so it was the Doctor, like Ruth was the Doctor, but she was split off at a certain point. So
Oh.
literally divided the Doctor was. So the Doctor we've been following has been like the original, and that's been like a clone or something else. It's been split off, and both the Doctor and just.
Oh, that would have been so interesting.
But there's nothing there. But it's like, okay, well,
She's actually just no nuance. The Doctor from before Hartnell.
okay, and then there's something else as well with the Grand Serpent. He's gone and got these like serpent tattoos on him, and one of his henchmen has got a tattoo who tries to kill, the guys back in the past. John Pertwee famously had a snake tattoo from his time in the Navy or something, and you actually see it in his first appearance as the Doctor.
Yeah, he's in the shower.
Which has been like a weird sort of contentious point with fans.
Did he regenerate a tattoo on?
Yeah, well, that's actually been another theory, that their bodies are taken from other people, and it was sort of expanded upon with Capaldi's Doctor. Like, their bodies aren't original, they're taken from other people. Like, I mean, there's a character called Commander Maxwell, played by Colin Baker, who appeared before Colin Baker became the Doctor.
And Peter Capaldi was both the guy in Pompeii and Frobisher in Torchwood.
Yeah.
Not that the Doctor met Frobisher, but still.
No, but it's this idea. I mean, there's other things like genetic, duplication. Like, I mean, Eve Miles played Gwyneth in The Unquiet Dead, and she played Gwen Cooper in Torchwood and Doctor Who. Yeah, there's... Okay, but going back to the tattoo.
Yes.
With John Pertwee. So, when Patrick Troughton, regenerates, there's enough sort of wiggle room. People thought,
Because
maybe...
they hadn't cast John Pertwee when they filmed Patrick Troughton's last scene.
Yeah.
So Patrick Troughton's story finishes with him going, no! And that's how that happens. And then the next year... Suddenly, Doctor Who's in colour, the TARDIS lands, and John Pertwee falls out of it.
Yeah.
So there's this Season 6B, they called it. Maybe the Doctor had another body between Troughton and Pertwee, which I wasn't a big fan of, but...
It explains things like the TARDIS, like Ruth having a TARDIS that looks like a police box,
yeah.
and the police box being classically styled.
Yeah.
Like, we've had this massive TARDIS, for so many years since Eccleston,
Yeah.
and now we've sort of reverted back to the smaller, slimmer model, like the original TARDIS. So, people are like, there's stuff there which is logical to think.
Yeah.
This is going to lead to something, but it's not.
No.
And like I said, there's only 3 episodes left, and the next episode is going to be on New Year's Day, and it's going to be like a Christmas-themed Groundhog Day.
Another Dalek story.
Yeah. People reckon, they have to use the Daleks at least once to keep the license, because they're actually owned by Terry Nation's estate, who created the Daleks. And I guess there's some weight to it, because you think about it, we've had, sort of a Dalek story every year, or a Dalek feature every year.
Well, yeah, there was, if you actually notice in the Moffat era, especially like the Matt Smith era, he would just put the Daleks in for like 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Like Series 6, there was just a moment where the Doctor, like, it's part of a montage. The Doctor just ravages a Dalek spaceship, and the Dalek's like, no mercy! And he's like, I need information, and that's the whole scene.
Yeah.
Should probably talk about Flux.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
Also, did you notice that the Doctor didn't actually save the universe?
I'm not entirely sure what happened, to be honest, and
The Flux destroyed, like, most of the universe. Like, there was a whole point made about how Earth was basically the only planet still standing in its entirety. And that's why the Sontaran, Cybermen, and Daleks were all converging on Earth. Because and so, like, they actually stopped the Flux by using the passenger form with its infinite insides to absorb it. Which is another thing that just got set up 10 minutes before it actually happened.
Yeah.
Antimatter being stopped with matter? What?
Yeah.
What?
I'm not sure if I said before on the show, but it's sort of like back when Russell T Davies was in charge, you kind of had an element of science and sort of real world stuff that you could figure things out based upon clues given. Like, I mean, with the Slovene, traits about the Slovene which are spoken to us, and you could figure out maybe with those traits, with actual scientific thinking, these are calcium-based life forms, maybe something like vinegar would destroy them. And that's true.
The best kind of science fiction is when you watch something happen and go, oh, of course that's how it would happen.
And then I remember during Moffat's run, and I'm especially thinking of Mummy on the Orient Express, which is a favourite episode of mine. But who the hell was going to come up with that solution? Like, the solution to figure out how to deal with that threat. No one's going to come up with that, because it's just something completely sci-fi that's just pulled out of nowhere.
I forgot. Remind me.
The foretold was like it would show up 60 seconds before someone's death, and it would kill them. And it was revealed like it was this bit of alien tech, and it was like a soldier, and it was like still like sort of, it was reanimating and sort of still killing. And again, it's something so sort of obscure, and like the whole soldier thing, and like there's this tablet on the wall which explains what it is and that controls it or something. Yeah, again, it's just really pulled out of nowhere. I mean, it makes sense within the story, but it's got no real world basis.
Yeah, it's like it's not something that you can anticipate. The best kind of science fiction is it's just based on actual science.
Yeah.
Like in the classic series, have you seen Invisible Enemy?
No, I haven't.
It's a Tom Baker one. It's the first time he meets K9.
Right.
It's the Doctor creates a clone of himself to shrink down to a microscopic size to go into his own body. And I was watching it, and the cliffhanger is him shrinking and going into his tear duct. And I was watching it. It was obviously, Tom Baker and Louise Jamison on a green screen with like water behind them. It's like they're not even getting wet. What is this? This is terrible. But then in the next episode, Leela goes, "Doctor, why are we still dry if we just went through your tear duct?" And he goes, "We're too small to break the surface tension of the water."
Whoa. Yeah, wow.
And it's like, oh.
Well, Doctor Who was created to be a scientific, an historical education show.
Yeah.
Looking at Chibnall's era, it sort of feels like he's kind of going for that because, okay, with historical figures in the past, in Doctor Who, we've had the heavy hitters, and most of them are writers, funnily enough, like Charles Dickens and Agatha Christie and William Shakespeare. The big people, like the big celebrities of history. And this series, Williamson, I forgot his first name, probably just John or something, Joseph Williamson, who's a real historical figure. They barely scratched the surface. Mary Seacole is like quite controversial because she was around the same time as Florence Nightingale, which I could imagine, RTD or Moffat's era would feature Florence Nightingale opposed to Mary Seacole. And Mary Seacole was sort of controversial because some people are like, how dare there be two women operating on the battlefield at the same time and a black woman? That's this weird sort of, so almost racist sort of historical bias historians have against this character.
One thing that I do love about the Chibnall era is the racial diversity. It's really good.
Yeah.
I just wish the writing was good.
Yeah.
Speaking of really bad writing, Yaz and Dan. Oh my god. I like Mandip Gill as an actor. I hate the way Yaz has been written. Last night I decided I like the way Dan is written. I actually hate John Bishop.
Oh, really?
I hate him. I can't watch him.
Oh.
all of his lines are delivered the same.
It's the accent. It's a thick accent.
It's more than just the accent. There's also... sorry for butchering that Scouse accent there. Di, his girlfriend... Di was also Liverpool, and she was a much better actor than him.
Yeah.
She didn't deliver every line the same.
John Bishop and Bradley Walsh, I think, sort of... They're more like presenter, and they do occasional acting things, and they're sort of...
Bradley Walsh was excellent as Graham.
Yeah.
Well, I think.
Yeah.
I think he gave a beautiful, understated, funny, nuanced performance. John Bishop, nope.
I think I've only seen John Bishop act in a few things, and it was like Nativity with Sheridan Smith, and it was just them putting on like a Nativity play, and there's a bunch of well-known actors in it. But yeah, he's not like really the actor, hey? Like
no. Anyone can act. Anyone can act. All you need to do to act, all you need to do, but what you need to do to act is you need to put yourself in a headspace where you believe what your character is saying. You need to know how the character's feeling, and then obviously that's what acting is. He is not in any scene. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's very aloof.
He is.
I mean, the dog bashes down his door, and he's like, "All right, you're right there." Not what the hell are you doing, smashing down my door?
I thought it was funny when I saw the first episode. I was like, very dry, sarcastic kind of character. But now that I've seen 6 hours of him, no, it's just not good.
The Lupari, the dog people. They're all just killed off, apparently. We
only saw one Lupari.
Yeah, and then he's just sitting there, looking sad as he can through that makeup. And I think Yaz or one of them's like, "What's up with him?" And Dan's just like, "Oh, all these people died." And it's just this weird 5-second scene of like, oh, did you forget that thing that happened 5 minutes before?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all these people are dead.
The guy who played Carvanista, that moment when the Sontaran says, "Oh, we killed all your people," and he just goes completely still and opens his eyes wide and just stares down the Sontaran at that moment. That was some amazing acting. I wonder what it would have looked like on just his own face. Amazing feat of performance just with the eyes. And then he howled. And I was like,
oh dear.
He awoo.
Awoo. Yeah, it's impressive makeup, and it looks better in motion when it does move because it's very thick, and we spoke in episode 1. It's a lot to act through.
Yep.
But yeah, it's so weird that again, it's just like half-finished ideas, and it doesn't really amount to anything.
Speaking of half-finished ideas that aren't really amounting to anything, Yaz, who is now the longest-running companion of the revival,
oh god,
has not had any sort of character arc. They tried to do this thing this year where the Doctor is shutting Yaz out and it's causing tension, but then they were like hardly ever together this series, and then in the last 10 minutes of this episode, the Doctor just says to Yaz, "Oh, I'm sorry I didn't let you in," and Yaz goes, "Okay," and then they have this really like tense eye contact. It's like, oh my god, are they're gonna kiss?
Yeah.
And then Yaz gets called away, and
always splitting them up.
and the Doctor cries, and I'm like, oh my god.
There's so much to take in. I can't even really remember the crying.
It was just one tear.
And
then she and then she took the fob watch with all the memories of the timeless child, as in, the stuff that, we've been like tearing our hair out for a year over, and goes
2 years, yeah.
And goes and opens a hole in the TARDIS and says, "I'm going to drop it down here and you're going to hide it from me unless I really need it." And it's like, you didn't even have a moment where you said, "I'm the Doctor and it doesn't matter who I used to be. This is who I am now."
Yeah.
You just gave a big fat finger to the fans, to people watching. It's like, okay, why have I been? Timeless Children. Chibnall created this huge new character for the Doctor's backstory, Tecteun.
Yeah.
This mother figure for the Doctor almost, who she doesn't remember. And introduced her 15 seconds in episode 4 or 3. In episode 5, she explains to the Doctor, and it's treated like a big revelation, but it was stuff we already knew.
Yeah.
The Division exists outside of time. The Division corrects things. Even the Time Lords didn't really know about the Division. And you worked for the Division. And it's like, oh, we already knew this stuff. And then she dies. Swarm comes in and gets her.
Yeah, so... I was sort of thinking about this, like, it's just so rushed.
Yes.
The finale and the intro, and there's, like, you do have the angels and the Sontarans, that sort of has time to sit, and you have jarring cutaways to things like Bell and all that stuff, which we've not even talked about yet, but I sort of think you need more time to spread it out, but I'm just thinking, but for what? What can we take away from this series, apart from a few cool moments, visually, which is completely disconnected from any writing, a few cool Doctor-ish moments with Jodie, which, again, is very minimal. What's it going to amount to if you had an extra episode to just spread it out? It's just going to be more prolonged suffering and discontent. And I'm reminded as well of Empire Strikes Back, where Vader goes and does that big revelation, which we won't talk about, just in case no one's seen Star Wars. But, he gives that big revelation, and imagine having to sit with that for 3 years of like, is this true? Is this true about Luke and Vader? So, George Lucas spoke to a child psychologist who said, well, you need to reaffirm that this is true from a trusted character. So you go into Return of a Jedi and Yoda tells Luke with certainty, this is true what Vader said to you. So it makes it establishes it's not just Vader lying to Luke, So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it reaffirms it and sort of lets the kids know in the audience, like, yeah, this is true. And obviously the fans, it confirms it. Which is, not to go on about Star Wars further, but the whole Rey thing, it comes from Kylo Ren, the villain, why can you trust him? How can you trust anything he says? Nothing is given to her from a trusted source. And it's the same deal with the Doctor, who tells her about the timeless child is told to her by the Master, a villain.
Yes.
And then Tecteun, who has no relationship to the Doctor at all.
Since the memory wipe. Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't know her. The Doctor doesn't know her. How can we trust her?
Yeah.
She just reaffirms. But again, it's just like, how do we know any of this is true?
Yeah.
You could almost write it like to say, the Master said it to screw with the Doctor. And then Tecteun's like, oh, okay, the Doctor's coming here. What does she know? The Doctor comes in and says, I'm the timeless child. And Tecteun could be like, oh, so that's what you know. Yes, that's true. But the Doctor could very well have come in and said, oh, the Master's a timeless child. Oh, yes, that is true. You know, it sort of feels like it could be written either way. And there's just so many holes and so much just left open, unexplained.
Yeah.
A writer could come in and just sort of completely ignore it or just very easily address it as, you know, oh, the Master made it all up. Tecteun went along with it because she hates the Doctor for whatever reason, and she thought, well, the Doctor's pissed me off for thousands of years, so let's, you know, screw with her some more. There's no confirmation, but there's no one in Doctor. And even Ruth, who's a new character who we can't really trust, basically said to the Doctor last season, well, what's it matter if it's true? You know, you're you. You know, what's it matter if you don't remember this stuff, you know?
Yeah. Then why keep focusing the series on it? I mean, I would be so mad if this is where that story finishes, because it's huge. You can't just drop that and ignore it.
Yeah.
And I would hate it. I would absolutely hate it if it all turned out to, oh, it was just a prank. Like, that would be so cheap. That would be so cheap.
Yeah. It's...
But speaking of the Master, there was that moment with the... Okay, getting ahead of myself. This weird character who came out for 5 minutes called Time, who first presents itself as Swarm, and then presents itself as the Doctor once it's killed Swarm and Azure for not bringing the Flux all the way through the universe so that Time could be released from its prison, even though it still had the power to disintegrate Swarm and Azure and manipulate matter. Whatever that was, it was not set up.
No.
The planet was called Time, and Swarm and Azure were like, you are space, we are time, but time was also another being.
Yeah. What does any of it mean?
Who then said to the Doctor, basically, he will knock 4 times, your song is ending. Basically just repeated it again and then said, oh, the forces that mass against you and them Master. Your eyes are glazing over like you fell asleep during the episode.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember this.
You don't remember?
Look, there's so much that happened in that. I'm just like...
Do you remember the bit where... Oh, also, the Doctor was split into 3 this episode.
Yeah, I mean...
Because the
good rule 34 opportunities.
Oh my God. I love that moment. I love that moment where...
They interact, yeah.
2 Jodies interact.
I was also just thinking she looks so much better in the dark coat.
She does.
Yeah, I can't wait
that
for
was
figure.
Time.
Yeah.
That was Time in the dark coat.
Yeah, it's...
But it really reeks of Series 4, David Tennant, the Dr. Donna split. Your song is ending, he will knock 4 times.
Yeah.
It's all kind of...
Are you comparing it to that, or did Time actually say that?
Time said, your time is almost up, no regeneration, no escape. Beware of the no regenerations. Beware of the forces that mass against you and their Master. I will catch up to you. And then it faded away.
Right.
Which feels like a reference to the Master.
It does, yeah, very deliberately.
It would be a shame to not see Sacha Dhawan again, because even though his mere existence besmirches the amazing work of Michelle Gomez, you know, I loved watching him. I loved watching him and just ignoring the glaringly bad writing.
Yeah. Long story short, it's... I mean, not to cut it short and wrap it up, but to sort of explain for the benefit of the radio audience, there's a lot of ideas and none of them are really expanded, and anything you think is going to go one way is immediately proved to be false. So there's nothing to grab onto. There's nothing to really, anything.
And anything that is resolved in air quotes, is rushed through in such an unsatisfying way that you just couldn't appreciate anything. Like Jericho, the professor from episode 4,
Played by Kevin McNally.
who has previously been in Doctor Who.
Has he? Yes, he has, back in the past, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I have seen that.
Not in the future.
Yes.
He had this really heroic death on the Sontaran ship.
It reminded me of the one from last year, the guy Barristan Selmy from Game of Thrones. He killed himself
Kashamis.
That's it.
It was better than that.
Yeah, it was, but it sort of was like, this feels like a redo of that in a way.
But also it happened way too quickly. I liked Jericho just on the basis of the fact that Kevin McNally was doing a great job.
Yeah.
And I wanted to...
Is there anyone in there? Yeah. Sorry, keep going.
I liked Jericho just based on Kevin McNally's performance, but I really didn't have enough time to get to know him enough to be sad when this really cool death scene happened.
Yeah.
And let's just go through a couple of things that happened that would be fine if they were given time to breathe. Vinda confronting the Grand Serpent. Kate Stewart meeting the 13th Doctor. Jericho's death. This character called Time.
Yeah.
Swarm and Azure, the Ravagers. Di and Dan being reunited, but there's tension because for some reason.
Yeah.
3 Doctors. It's been done before, multiple Doctors, but it's always fun to see a new actor try it. I remember watching the episode and thinking, oh my god, anyone complaining about the 13th Doctor's boring costume, calling it a uniform, it literally was a uniform. Like, remember when David Tennant was cloned, they were wearing 2 different suits. So I was like, oh, that's that one and that's that one. Like, obviously there was like the thing that, the one Doctor had this 1 in a billion chance thing happen to her where she was removing some conversion plate at the time that Swarm touched her, so she got split into 3 across 3 time zones and locations, which luckily happened to be exactly where she needed to be.
Yeah.
It really felt like Chibnall knew that he had too much stuff to resolve with the Doctor, and so he literally said, there's 3 of her.
Yeah.
And then there was not much made of the fact that there were 3 Doctors. I wanted to see 2 Jodies, maybe with different ideas.
What was that about the uniform bit, sorry? Because I'm so sorry, like, there's so much in this episode. I'm sort of focused on one thing and I've completely missed other things,
Oh, I just mean the 13th Doctor's costume is really basic. And
I think with her costume as well, like, the inspiration for it looks so good, but then on her it just sort of looks a bit... It's sort of like it's been designed a bit frumpy. Well, not even frumpy, but it's sort of like
it's the coat.
Yeah.
The coat doesn't have... The coat is not shapely.
Yeah.
Jodie Whittaker, I presume you've seen the video from 2018 where she's talking about the woman in World War II with the 3/4 pants and the suspenders.
I think it was actually it was a photo shoot from the 80s or the 90s or something.
Oh,
like
was
that.
it?
Yeah, it was like a fashion photo shoot because it's very sort of modern, and it looks really good on the model, and it would look really good on her. But like I said, it's just sort of like the cut of her clothes just doesn't quite suit her, and I think it looks a bit better now.
Whenever she's not wearing the coat, it looks good.
Yeah.
But yeah, because okay, quick classic Who lesson. The first 4 Doctors, so the first 18 years of the show, which is a long time.
Very.
The Doctor didn't have a costume per se. It was all just like a dress sense. So, The first Doctor, he dressed like an Edwardian gentleman. So lots of black coats and stuff, but different neckties, different waistcoats, different pants and shoes, different walking sticks. So, he had a definite silhouette. But second Doctor dressed like an Edwardian hobo. Different bow ties, different shirts, different pants. It's harder to tell in black and white, but they were all different. Third Doctor, John Pertwee, he dressed like an Edwardian dandy. So he had all these beautiful frilly shirts and velvet jackets, all different colours and shapes, and glorious. And then fourth Doctor, Tom Baker, a bit less Edwardian, I think, but still kind of, was the... they called it bohemian, kind of like this kind of artist thing. So big heavy coats, a number of different waistcoats and ties and stuff, and the scarf, obviously. And then in the 80s, when John Nathan Turner took over, for some reason he decided the Doctor would wear the same thing every episode. So it started with, it's quite subtly, Tom Baker's second last season. He wore something that you could have seen him wearing in any of his other seasons, but it was exactly the same. It was like a beige coat, beige pants, and the scarf, and an open-necked white shirt. Pretty boring, but okay, whatever. And then for Tom Baker's last season, he just got someone to redesign it completely, and he's wearing all burgundy. It's still like the same silhouette, big coat, big scarf, but instead it's all burgundy. And then you get Peter Davison wearing always the same jumper and shirt and coat and pants. Colin Baker, it changed between seasons, but still every consecutive episode it was the same thing. Sylvester McCoy, again.
Yeah, it went darker as when it went on. And it really did inform where it ended up. I mean, look, Eccleston, there's changes in the sweater underneath his leather coat. You don't get to see much of him, throughout that, but I guess it would have changed with time.
Yeah.
Tennant, he had the same suit, and then he added the blue suit, and it sort of...
But he wore it in different ways. He'd have the jacket open, or he'd have it done all the way up, or he'd have the different coloured shirts and ties, or no tie and the collar over it. And...
Smith's was quite subtle, like he had different ties and different shirts. And I think
he had a number of different jackets,
I think his Series 5 coat was a bit... It's sort of like in Series 6 onwards, it became a bit too fitted, and it became like a costume.
More formal.
Yeah.
Whereas he looked comfortable. He looked like he could sit down and read a book.
Yeah. Capaldi's I love, just all the different variations, like the shirts and the hoodies.
Whereas somehow, in 2018, she went into this charity shop and found this costume.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, cool. Yeah, the Doctor, fundamentally is cosmic hobo. That's fine. Shopping at charity shops, that's great. In the last 4 years... The only variation has been that somehow she's found every single variation of that rainbow pattern shirt in a different colour.
Yeah.
Apart from one episode where she wore like a blouse or a vest, I think, something with buttons under the coat.
Yeah.
The Frankenstein episode.
Oh, I haven't seen... I don't remember that one. I should really return to it, hey?
Yeah. And it just takes... an element of personality and groundedness away from the character when they wear the exact same thing every episode.
I think there's just little things they could have added. It feels like the script is so sort of divorced from everything else. Yeah, little things, I think, when she was in the charity shop, if she'd somehow found there was like just different versions of the same shirt in different colours, and she's like, which one do you think, the blue or the red, or the green? How's the green look? Oh, I'd buy them all. I don't have any money. Yaz, pay for it. Fuck you, Doctor.
Oh, you can't put that on the radio.
No, it's YouTube edit. But just a little touch like that would have explained at least, Not that you need to, but
I don't even want it to be explained. I just wish that she could express herself more differently each time.
And her hair as well. Like, you sort of... have you seen Loki? The Loki series?
Yeah.
Yeah, Sylvie on that was very sort of doctorish, wasn't she? She's sort of she's more Midlands accent-wise than, Northern. But, sort of a blonde time-travelling woman who's, fighting against a greater, threat. It's sort of very reminiscent of 13 in a way.
Kind of is, yeah.
And she did interesting things with her hair, tying it up and
Yeah.
brushing it aside, and just, it sort of feels like Jodie does a lot of things with her hair in promotional things, and you're just like, that would look great on the Doctor.
Yeah, and even like her coat, which, as we've discussed, is quite boring and not shapely at all. It makes her look a bit like a blob, which is a shame. It has a hood on it. That's a completely new silhouette for the Doctor.
Yeah.
And she, in some of the promotional material, she rolled her sleeves up on the coat. Remember that? She had rolled her sleeves up on the coat, and she put the hood on, and it was like, wow, this is something. And then every single episode, no hood, sleeves all the way down, some variation of the rainbow shirt, and that's it. And that's always how she looks.
I think there could be so much done because, yeah, you're right. It's sort of shapeless, the coat, but it could be utilized in a way if she had if she changed up the length of her pants, which she has a few times, I think. But it's sort of, or maybe not even then. It's just, it could work, but it doesn't.
And the reason we started talking about this was because there were 3 Doctors in this episode.
Yes,
and there was about 10 or 15 minutes where 2 of them were both in the TARDIS talking to each other. But they were dressed exactly the same.
Yeah.
That's why I made the uniform comment.
Right, yeah.
And and it was also very confusing about whether they were the same Doctor split in 3 or created 3 different Doctors, because she seemed, before any of them met each other, the 3 Doctors, they all seemed to be aware of what the others were experiencing. But then as soon as they came into contact, they had to literally do the Time Lord contact thing where they joined up telepathically. And it's like, oh, suddenly they have to talk to the other Doctor? I thought they were just her consciousness split up. It's like, half-baked idea, once again.
Yeah, and again, it sort of led into the whole division thing. The Doctor was literally divided, and I'm like, oh my god, it's a division. We're going to get something here, but no, nothing. It just feels so, there's so much untapped potential. I mean, the TARDIS, that thing that she drops the fob watch down, that's a completely new fob watch design, barely gets featured at all. Swarm uses it to, torture her, but we don't really get, a sense of, what's going on. It supposedly contains her memories. We don't see Joe Martin again beyond episode 3.
We don't.
Yeah, and then when she destroys it, there's this giant ball in the console which she pulls out, and it's this ball which is it's almost like a mouse ball. It looks like it sort of rolls around, and you move it and shift it, and that maybe controls something. No idea what any of the controls on this TARDIS do.
Was it you who said to me that some camera operators have said that they were not consulted before the set was built?
No.
Apparently that set is really difficult to get cameras into.
Yeah, because it's really cramped.
And
it's changed subtly every year.
Stuff, these big pillars and things just in there. Which is why it improved this season, but it's why in the first 2 seasons, so much of it was just the Doctor and the fam standing in the TARDIS and still shots.
I started to actually read some 13th Doctor comics, which were written in conjunction with and before the series came out. And this isn't Doctor Who. I don't think continuity is really much of a concern as you might have with something like Marvel or Star Wars even.
Oh, I like to keep a bit of an eye on it. But yes, in 50 years, some things are not going to...
Yeah, but then the comics sort of feels generic Doctor, but she feels more Doctor in the comics just from the first few pages of her introduction than she does in almost the entire show.
Really?
You could sort of plot that dialogue onto any Doctor and it would work. It's not uniquely her, but it's that's the Doctor. And she's moving around the console and you don't really get a feel of that. She doesn't do the Doctor-y things. And
yeah,
it always annoyed me before whenever she pulled the Sonic out and it was a grand declaration.
Yes, the magic wand.
Yeah, she'd slowly raise her arm up I have the power, and she stopped doing that, It's
work out who your Doctor actually is and then, run with it.
Yeah. something to sort of wrap up the radio part of this. So there's so many ideas, there's so many things which have sort of been left unexplained, left untapped with Flux. How would you have done it? What would you have done? Like if you'd say, left off with episode 5 and you've been told, okay, that's where it is, you finish this series off, what would you do?
Royce.
I guess it's sort of like what expectations did you have from the last episode? Because we expected something.
I went into the series just thinking I just want them to take me for a ride. So I haven't put much thought into this, and I was just mad because I wasn't taken on a ride at the end. I was aware that I was watching television. You know, that's the cardinal sin of entertainment, is being boring. I was aware that I was watching something that was not funny, and it wasn't dramatic, and it wasn't clever, and I was just like, how would I have done it though? Well, honestly, I would have taken it right back to the start. I there's no way to save 5 episodes with 1 episode. But you'd have to work out what the message and the theme of the series actually is. Now, coming off Timeless Children, the theme could be identity. You think?
Maybe, yeah.
So you'd have to do lots of stuff with identity. So, like, that's why the 3 Jodie Whittakers could have really worked. Maybe it's split into various elements of her psyche, you know. That could have been something, could have explored that somehow. You know, the Division. We needed to see more of the Division and meet more Division operatives. And Tech Taeun shouldn't have died. She probably should have been the villain. Tech Taeun probably should have been doing everything. And Swarm and Azure, if they had to be there, should have been her minions who maybe turned against her at the end.
Yeah, I was about to say that, because there's sort of a trope where you've got the villain who's like the dragon, which is sort of like what Darth Vader is. Like, he's the dragon. He's the one who does all with the Force. That's the main guy you've got to fight. But then you've got the Emperor, who's sort of like... That's sort of the role that Tech Taeun could have taken. And then maybe Swarm and Azure could have killed Tech Taeun, but after she established herself as a proper threat. And
after the Doctor and her had more time.
Yeah. And where Swarm was like, you know, just a force of nature. Because it seems as though he is, but he's not. He's presented as like, he should be a force of nature.
It was implied in the first episode that he was controlling the Flux. But he wasn't.
Yeah. Oh, who knows? Yeah, you're right. It could sort of go back to the beginning of at least Flux. And I would have played around with a lot of things, like maybe have just little things like, if you're going to have that, what would the Doctor do on the Yaz's palm? Establish that in episode 1, have it come into play in episode 2. Have the Doctor do things with her hair and her costume. So then when you have 3 Jodies, you can tell which is which. Like one you see puts her hair up and she's maybe suggesting the playful ideas or the aggressive ideas, because she's like more in action. You know, she's got her hair out of her face. She's ready for action. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
Turns the coat inside out so it's dark. You know, it looks like it's turned inside out anyway. You know. Stuff like that.
But yeah, I think that it didn't know what it was talking about, the show. It didn't know what message it wanted to get across. And it just put in too many things that were not thematically linked. And therefore, they tried to resolve a whole number of dramatic emotional plots quickly and unsatisfyingly.
I remember as well when we meet Kate. And it's just like she's walking home from work. And
Claire.
No, Kate. Kate Stewart.
Kate Stewart.
I was going to say Bishop. Kate Stewart. She meets the Grand Serpent, and then she's just walking home, and she's the leader of a unit. And not to say she needs to live in a mansion. She should just live in this quiet, you know, semi-detached house in a quiet neighborhood. That makes sense. But she's the leader of this government organization. You know, there should be security detail outside her house. She should maybe be dropped off in a cab or like a limo or something. You know, she's trying to be covert, but it's sort of like. Her house gets blown up and she's just walking home like she's just got off the bus, and there's no thought, there's no consequence, there's nothing there.
I remember thinking, I was thinking, we've never seen the Brig or Kate's house, how they live outside of unit. And then when
she like started to open the door, and it cut to behind her door, and there was that that bomb that was like the shape of the doorknob, but with like a light up dial around it. I remember thinking, oh, okay, she's leader of unit. She's got some alien tech in her house, but no, it was just a normal house and a bomb.
Yeah, like I said, it's like a half baked idea, and I guess there's COVID restrictions, and that may be why we only get like, they can justify having a Centauran ship plow into a bunch of Centauran ships and a massive explosion, but they can't justify another Lupari. They can't justify some extras sitting in a car, like watching her get home safely. You can't cut away to that. Just a lot of holes, a lot of unrealized stuff.
Yeah.
And Jericho, did you notice he grows a beard in like the span of a scene? When
in episode 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, so did Dan.
What was that? Because they show up at this the Great Wall of China. So it's 1904. So they say they've been here for 2 years since they got sent back in time. But the Angels, it was like November when they were sent back, 1901. Now it must be early 1904, considering the time and the place and the amount of like traveling around the world they're doing. It's taken months to get to places. Sure, it's still 1904 as they travel to the Great Wall of China and South America and all that stuff. And they show up at the Great Wall of China to leave this message. And as soon as I did that, I'm like, the Great Wall of China can be seen from space. That's the thing they're going with. But it can't, everything can be to a degree, but, not like that.
And they left it was a very Moffat thing, leaving a message through time.
Yeah.
But whereas Moffat would do it, something carved into a cliff face, like, River's Hello Sweetie, something that would last through the ages. This is just paint in a section of forest they cut down. Forests grow.
Yeah. It's been 120 years since then.
Yes.
Yeah, and Carvanista only just sees it. That would have been something that's been there for hundreds of years. That would be like something in the public knowledge.
Yes.
They've changed history by doing that.
Yes.
And like I said, it's only a year, but then at the end of it, like both Dan and Jericho have got like 2 years worth of beard, and then it's just suddenly gone.
I don't know. People grow beards pretty quickly. People,
yeah.
I feel like you and I might be pretty challenged in the facial hair department.
I can grow a beard. Yeah, can't get rid of the bloody thing now.
Some people can really grow beards, so I don't have an issue
Speaking
with
of
that.
Jericho, actually, and Claire, it's very reminiscent of Hyde from Clara in 11.
Yeah, it's like 70s and 60s, like the psychic research.
Visually, even him and Dougray Scott kind of look similar. And Jessica Raine and Annabelle Sholey here.
I really loved let's talk about the Angel episode, because that was really good.
Yeah.
I love the expansion of Angel lore. And it wasn't stupid like in like when Moffat tried to expand the monsters. Like the Angels were fantastic in Blink, the very first one they were in, and then he tried to expand them a bit more, and it was okay the first time, except that we saw one of the Angels move, because apparently they're not actually locked by, like they just thought they were locked or something. But like the idea of the image of an angel becomes an angel, and angels get into your head. They're quite psychic. I loved all the uses of an image of an angel becomes an angel.
Yeah.
This year, I loved the bit where the Doctor threw the drawing into the fire, and then the angel came back and it was on fire. Like, it was really cool. I love the bit where the angel started manipulating the brainwave reading, because it was a classic pen and paper machine. So it started drawing the angel. I love that. I love the angels using people's own voices to torment them. Yeah. That was really cool.
Although when it happens with Jericho, because it's quite, Kevin McNally's a very diverse actor, and when he's reading for the angel, it's quite a menacing voice. I'm like, oh, it is him. I didn't realise for like a minute or so. Yeah. And then when it's Jodie's voice as well later on, it's... Yeah, I think with the last series of Doctor Who, the finale sort of retroactively killed any goodwill I had, because, it sets up this mystery of like, and like I sort of said, like the Judoon, it was like the greatest hits of the Judoon, but sort of dumber. And I enjoyed that episode, but then after the reveal, it was kind of like, just completely docked, 5 points off it. And I think with this series, despite everything, I still remember those bits with the Centaurans and the Angels fondly.
I'm still glad those exist. And this series is... I was going to say it's better than Series 11 and 12, but the first 4 episodes are better than Series 11 and 12.
Yeah. Because it felt like it was doing something.
Yeah.
And then once it sort of just spun its wheels for a bit in episode 5, it just like, oh, we're not going anywhere fast.
Yeah. Real shame. Yeah, I'm really sad.
I'm not sure if you said, but yeah, sucks for Jodie.
I've been... Because half the role of the Doctor, half the job interacting with the public, whether that's through press tours or Tom Baker just showing up in costume at school.
Yeah.
Doctor Who Confidential was a companion show for the whole series up until Chibnall took over. It was just behind the scenes of the show. And as well as, I'm sure many people who are working in the industry now got inspired by watching Doctor Who Confidential.
Yeah.
But also it's just, I love actors and I love getting a sense of who the actors are. And I just haven't had that with Jodie.
Yeah, most you get like online featurettes and that sort of thing.
I've been clinging to these, can I swear?
Yeah.
These shitty little challenges that they get them to do. Like the emoji challenge thing. Where they tried to describe all the characters with emojis and the best they could come up with for Yaz was policewoman and cup of tea. Because Yaz said, do you want to have a cup of tea in Series 11?
Oh my God. It's so frustrating.
Jodie just has not. And do you remember Doctor Who Lockdown when all the actors made these little videos?
Yeah, I played Jodie's on the radio here, and I said it was like, it's the first Doctor-ish moment we've had from her. It actually feels.
It makes me really... I get emotional thinking about it, but she would have been a fantastic Doctor with a good writer.
Yeah.
She has it. She has it.
She does. And I've gone back and looked at some of Chibnall's old stuff. Have you watched Torchwood?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so he did Day One, which was the gas which fed off energy of, release, which is a bit childish.
The horny gas.
Yeah, the horny gas. He did Cyberwoman, and the design doesn't hold up. But
Cyberwoman, the episode itself is excellent.
It is.
It's just she's wearing a bikini.
Yeah, he did Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which was, I think, the intro to John Hart.
Yes.
He did Adrift, which was the boy who got sucked out of time, and Ruth Jones was in it. Haunting episode.
Yeah.
Fragments. He did the finale, like the one where we get flashbacks of like all the Torchwood cast.
Yeah.
I mean, Broadchurch, I think, was more sort of event. Like it was sort of like one of those you had to be there. It was like sort of the event of it. And I started to watch it a bit last night. And Jodie's great in it. And the writing's solid. And I'm sort of wondering it's probably being elevated by, the lead performances of Olivia Colman and David Tennant. But it's really solid. And we sort of look at his Doctor Who episodes, and I mean, 42 was a bit of a gimmick. Dinosaurs on the spaceships are just a bit of silly fun, It's sort of... Remember when we could just have disposable episodes and we go, oh, that wasn't for me. Next week we'll have something meatier. We haven't had that for like the last 3 or 4 years.
No, we haven't.
And I mean, even Moffat's last series was dominated by that monk plot and the Doctor being blind, which just sort of robbed all sort of fun from me because it was just so.
You didn't like the monk story?
I need to rewatch it. I think because
I think it was excellent.
I'll need to. This probably looks much better now, but I just remember being really bogged down and sort of like depressed by it.
I mean, yeah, it's funny, and I wonder if in 5 years we'll look back on the Chibnall era and go, "Oh, it was actually pretty good." Because I remember during the Moffat run, I was thinking, "Oh, the Moffat is the worst thing to ever happen to Doctor Who."
Well, Russell T Davies is coming back.
Yes,
and his writing has been consistently fantastic ever since he left the show,
and he's evolved as a writer too. So it will be different.
It's just a shame that's going to be 2 years away from now, when he is back.
And he's starting with the 60th special.
Yeah.
And I think that the 60th special is going to be the first. Is going to be the first story after Jodie regenerates.
Well, what if Jodie is in the 60th and she's the Doctor and she regenerates at the end?
She's already filmed her regeneration.
Yeah. That's a shame. It's such a shame because we're talking about Swarm and Azure, and you're like, oh, there's so much more that could be done, but then they're done. They're dead functionally. We've only got 2 episodes left because with the Dalek episode coming New Year's Eve, what can you do? He didn't do anything with the last 6 episodes. What's he going to do with the final 2?
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, so we're just assuming that based upon past performance, Russell T Davies is going to be great.
He might not be.
I mean, we sort of thought that Chibnall was going to be great, based upon his past stuff as well. But yeah, I'm not too sure if we're going to look back now and sort of go, oh, I miss Carvanista and the complicated plot.
We might. I don't know. We might.
Yeah. I think
you see that when Russell's writing it, it's not going to be produced by the BBC.
It's Bad Wolf Productions who do.
Do you know who just bought Bad Wolf?
Sony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So big budget.
Yeah. It's I can't remember. I think a friend of a friend is actually involved with the BBC productions and like hangs out with celebrities like in Scotland and the UK. And I'm not sure if they said like if it was a rumor or if it was widely reported that Sony was going to buy it or not. But I feel like I'd heard it before it happened. Yeah. I think we'll just sort of look back on this as like, oh, it's a shame. And I guess while, we might get Jodie for Big Finish in, 5-10 years' time, where she gets some meaty stories, it's sort of just a shame that we don't have, like with Colin Baker, we don't have. But even then, Colin Baker had some great moments, on TV.
I actually said to my friends last night that Flux is the trial of a Time Lord.
I thought that.
Of New Who.
I haven't seen it yet, but...
You haven't seen Trial of a Time Lord?
I haven't seen much of 6, but what I have seen, I've really enjoyed him.
Really?
Yeah.
I think he's not very good. What they tried to do with... What they did do really well with Peter Capaldi, they tried to do with Colin Baker.
Yeah.
But no one was on the same page about how to do it.
Yeah.
And also the show was losing funding, and it was
yeah.
It was a whole thing.
Now it's going to be interesting. Oh, frustrating.
Yes.
But yeah, Bad Wolf Productions, which was a team who were formerly doing Doctor Who when Russell T Davies were doing it, they've since done A Discovery of Witches, which is really high budget, really quite solid TV, and his Dark Materials, which is fantastic. It's movie quality, better than the movie they did. It's astonishing. And I'm really looking forward to seeing that sort of quality with Russell T Davies writing, like after seeing Years and Years and The British Scandal.
Just really disappointed because it started off positively.
There was optimism, I think.
And it just crashed and burned in 2 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, my mum hasn't seen it, and I've just sort of said to her, don't.
Yeah, don't bother.
Just wait till New Year's when
It's not worth it.
Doctor thing with Ashland Bees on.
We didn't learn anything.
No. I don't even think she knows about the Timeless Child. I had to tell her, and I said, and she's just like, oh, right, okay.
Yeah. Yep. Well, is that time to sign off then?
I think so. Yeah. I'm Royce.
I'm Matt.
And we'll see you next time. Bye for now.